What's up, Taiwan? I'm Ethan Liu with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. It's nearly 2 weeks since deadly floodwaters covered Guangfu Township in eastern Taiwan. Despite signs of recovery, the search for the missing isn't over. Zhang Ventres reports.
An army of volunteers has spent weeks in eastern Taiwan's Guangfu Township cleaning up. A dam here got overwhelmed amid a typhoon in late September, sending a violent surge of water into the nearby town. At least 18 people died. People from across the country have shown up with shovels to help the recovery. And there's been steady progress. Around 90% of local roads are now cleared. And despite flood damage, nearly all local homes are dug out of the mud. Residents are back to gather whatever mementos of their old lives may have survived.
以前因为我在老家也有住了7、8年，可能都毁掉了啦。那当然是希望很珍惜啦，但老照片以前我们也不多啦，因为我们那时候穷。
School will be back in session soon too. The local vocational high school will have online classes until it reopens on the 13th. And the middle school will reopen even sooner on Tuesday.
我们学校目前的恢复状况已经达到90%，我相信在1、2天我们可以达到100%。
But healing and closure may take some time. 6 people are still missing, among them Lin Jingyi's parents. She sprays one of their favorite perfumes into the mud, hopeful they may still be found.
对我们难受，他一定比我们还更难受，因为这种泥土地从湿到干，政府不要停下来这件事情，因为还很多人没有被挖到，不单单是我的父母亲，一定也还有别人，所以你们拜托拜托，政府不要停下来。
The fire department says it won't stop looking, but with many buried areas still in ruins, finding anything could be a big task. Joseph Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
While life in Guangfu is slowly returning to normal, attention is turning to the area's farmland still buried under the mud.
现在的所有清出来的淤土，还有垃圾，才只有6万吨，那农田就有600万吨。救灾复原工作告一段落之后，农田就是我们下一个阶段的一个重点。
Heavy rains brought by Typhoon Ragasa washed huge amounts of mud down from the mountains after a dam overflowed, with hundreds of hectares of farmland damaged, causing losses of around $10 million. Farmers worry if they'll be able to make a living. Local officials say the mud has to be removed before any farming can resume.
它是新鲜的话，本身里面有机质不多，种东西就比较不容易了。如果太深的话，那个要养地要养很久一段时间啊，所以真的太深的话，还是要清除，会比较快复耕。
The Agriculture Ministry has pledged to provide assistance through a special relief program. Typhoon Matmo has made landfall in southern China, lashing the area with strong winds and heavy rain. The powerful typhoon is passing through Hainan, Guangdong, and Guangxi provinces with winds of up to 170 kilometers per hour. Local officials have issued the highest level red storm warning. Guangdong authorities have relocated more than 150,000 residents, while Hainan has suspended rail services and canceled flights across the island. The typhoon has disrupted a peak holiday travel period. North Korea says it will build up its military in response to the increase of U.S. forces in the south. According to state-run media, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said Pyongyang has allocated strategic assets to counter the United States and vowed to develop additional military measures. The statement comes after the United States deployed new missile defense systems to South Korea, in addition to holding joint military training drills with Seoul and Tokyo in September. Kim also said that North Korea's enemies should be concerned about the security environment they're developing. Protesters took to the streets in Tel Aviv, urging the Israeli government to end the war in Gaza in exchange for the release of all hostages. On Friday, Hamas accepted key parts of U.S. President Donald Trump's proposed peace deal, including the hostage release. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office responded that Israel was preparing for an immediate implementation following Hamas' final confirmation. But some Israeli protesters expressed doubt about Israel following through with the U.S. plan.
We know that President Trump has been pushing it. Unfortunately, knowing our Prime Minister Netanyahu, we are very worried that he will find a way to sabotage, like he did in the past 2 years already.
In the social media post, Trump says that a confirmation by Hamas would trigger an immediate ceasefire. As there's hope for an end to the Israel-Hamas war, we take a look at the role of photojournalists in reporting on conflicts like it and the war in Ukraine. For our interview show Zoom In, Zoom Out, Rick Lauer spoke with Matthew Rodier, a photojournalist based in New York.
As a photojournalist, what are you able to capture through your photography, and what is harder to capture or to portray?
There is things you can capture. I'd like to think that I could capture the emotions, some of the emotions that are people are going through, and have that be, an indication to the reader that what these people are suffering through, and just how they're reacting, the danger that they're reacting to. But still photos, I'm aware that still photos do have their own limitations. So it's hard to, for instance, just a simple thing, war is very loud. Like there's, when things are dropping out of the sky and exploding, there's no real way to capture how loud that is in a still photo. But, I'm a believer in print media, even though it's evolved to be digitally distributed. I believe there is a great deal of value in the written word and having photographs to accompany that. So I'm fine working within the limitations of still photography, because I think there is an inherent value in freezing and capturing a specific moment amongst the chaos and amongst the destruction.
There's a lot going on in the world at the moment, big geopolitical events and upheaval. How do you see the role of a photojournalist in a time like this?
I don't see the role of a photojournalist, at least in the manner that I approach it, as being very different than it has been historically. I think that we document events and tell people stories in an accurate and truthful manner, and we convey that information to the public. And I don't really see a reason to stray outside of that. One of my colleagues, Finbar O'Reilly, had written an op-ed in the Washington Post actually about how photojournalists play a specific role in society. We provide information, but what's done with that information is to a large degree out of our hands. People, by voting and the economic choices they make and the leaders they support, have a great deal of power. And then there's leaders in business and billionaires and politicians that have a great deal of changes that they can, that individuals can make and that people can collectively make. But we're not necessarily on that side of it. We give you the information to make decisions that you may think will better the world. But I remain, solely dedicated to providing that information in the most comprehensive and truthful way possible. I don't believe that we should, dabble in activism. I don't think that that's not our role in society. We tell people what's going on and show them what's going on. And hopefully beyond that, we can put a human face and kind of drill down on the specific experience of an individual in a larger, news story or in the larger story of the conflict.
You've covered big pivotal moments around the world, including big political movements, unrest, protests. How do you see the world changing through your lens?
I guess the best way to answer that would be that the repression. I guess a lot of what I've been covering is protests, and I got started documenting the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that, democracy and democratic norms to an extent are backsliding. If you look at, the repression of free speech or the repression of peaceful protests, that has been gradually increasing in the time I've been in photojournalism. And I believe that bad behavior by governments tends to beget other bad behavior by other governments. And the more, governments such as my own as an American, tend to deviate from the rule of law or from democratic norms, that tends to grant license to more autocratic or authoritarian governments to repress the expression of political statements by their citizens, because there's not as much of a stark contrast between the two.
That was Matthew Rodier speaking on Zoom In, Zoom Out. The U.S. and China are closing in on the deal to transfer TikTok to a U.S. owner. The popular social media app has raised national security concerns in Washington and in Taipei. Tiffany Wong reports.
TikTok, one of the most popular apps in the world, has been at the center of tensions between the U.S. and China. The Chinese-owned app has 170 million users in the U.S., casting huge influence via screens everywhere. Estimates show that in Taiwan, over a third of the population uses it, and that figure is highest in younger age groups. It's an impressive reach with dangerous implications. According to one study of young TikTok users in Taiwan, the Chinese-owned app pushes China-friendly political content, sometimes even stirring public distrust in Taiwanese politicians. That messaging influences Taiwanese people's opinions of their government, political parties, and even their views on China.
I think one of the key points that TikTok often wanted to, or what we call the information manipulation, trying to deliver through TikTok to Taiwanese society is to emphasize the image that even though being unified, they will have no significant change for normal citizens. And the results actually surprised us as well, because it did making people become more pro-China, become more have a positive image about PRC's governance, and also making people have more skepticism ideas to Taiwanese citizens and Taiwanese governance.
In January, TikTok temporarily went dark in the U.S. when its Chinese parent company ByteDance couldn't meet a deadline to divest from the U.S. headquartered app. The U.S. government's demands were met with resistance from users, with hundreds of thousands of them migrating in protest to RedNote, the foreign edition of another Chinese app, Xiaohongshu. In Taiwan, TikTok is only banned from government-issued devices, those used by public servants who could have access to sensitive information. Lawmakers are still trying to figure out how to regulate the app, which doesn't officially have business operations in Taiwan.
TikTok 在台湾落地，最主要的问题是演算法不透明，资料库在境外，内容审核在境外，无论官方还是民意代表都难以及时监管。
But ordinary users in Taiwan seemed unconcerned about a potential ban of the app.
我觉得应该还会有其他类似的网站会出现，所以对我来说可能还好。
Others think it could be used as a platform to promote Taiwanese people's ideas instead of China's.
如果政府它不开放抖音，是怕被我们各国的声量来影响到我们台湾的想法的话，那我觉得它可以开放。然后，因为我们台湾的网友其实都蛮有创意的，所以现在要是开放一阵子，然后让台湾的人可以更容易了解到抖音，更容易接触到抖音，去搞不好上面的内容，台湾人创作的内容并不会比各国所创作的内容还要少。
And lawmakers agree that an outright ban is out of the question, but they say it's tricky, from balancing national security to protecting citizens' freedom and overall online safety.
我想用这样的一个方式，去用禁止的思维，我觉得还不如去思考我们如何创造我们属于中华民国台湾自己在社群服务上的竞争力。否则，只不过看到东西就不准使用，或者用禁止的方式，我想我们整体的社会智商，还有我们人民的资讯自由度，反而会受到影响。
完全的以禁止的方式来处理的话呢，不但是没有去符合比例原则，也就等于是没有去考虑刚刚讲的在不同的层次我们面临的问题应该要用怎么样的一个法律手段。所以我认为呢，依照我们现行的法律以及之后不管是美国那边的这一个采购的进行还有呢台湾这边呢还有新的自动安全管理法的规范，用这样的一个方式来管制这个所谓的这一个会对儿童有害的或者有诈欺的，甚至涉及国安的呢，这样才是一个比较妥适的方案。
With the U.S. making moves to wrestle control of TikTok and its data and keep it out of China's hands, the app may once again be at the center of national security discussions in Taiwan, too, as the debate between internet freedoms and digital safety continues. Scott Huang and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, we take you to Brazil, where priests are giving blessings to pets in a ritual. I'm Ethan Liu, and I'll see you next time.